Hi everyone, welcome back to Fleecimals Friday. I'm Michelle, and in today's video we're going to do some beginner sewing tutorials. I've been asked a lot, both on Instagram and for different comments, to teach you guys how to do little starting sewing projects. Especially if you have a brand new sewing machine or you're just starting out, these are some projects that are going to help you get your standing. So we have a scrunchie, we have a hair bow, and we also have luggage tags. So each of these are made out of fleece, my fabric of choice, and the reason that I chose this is because fleece doesn't fray. A lot of fabric, especially cotton and your satins, they fray apart. They have little fibers that are woven together, so when you cut them, they start to split. This is not always the best for beginners because you don't want to have to worry about how to hem certain things and how you need to flip fabric inside out and all your raw edges. So if you stick with fleece, you can start to learn how to sew with an easier sewing medium. All of these projects also have patterning that I designed and is free and available to print on Fleecimals.com. You can go to our printables tab, find the PDF and print it out for yourself so you can have the patterns right and ready to cut. Now let's jump right into the first project. Our first project doesn't require a pattern piece. It is simply a long rectangle. Now this is 3 inches by 13 inches, and this will make our scrunchie. So you'll need this piece of fabric as well as a hair tie without the metal. You want to have one that is just bound together. And the first thing I like to do before sewing is stretch out your hair tie so it kind of breaks up some of the fibers and gets it nice and loose. So we're going to do this pretty simple, just a straight stitch, but you can customize with your stitches. You can make a zigzag, you can use an overlocking serger. There's many ways to do this, but this is how I make scrunchies. I'm going to fold it in half, right sides of the fabric facing in, and I'm going to sew with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just a straight stitch down the open side. Now when you start at one end, and then back stitch to lock your stitching, and then start again. Once you get to the end, slow down and then back stitch once more. Now my sewing machine has a handy dandy little scissor so you can cut your stitches away. If you don't have this, lift your presser foot and just simply trim on the edge. Now that we have our loop, we have our inside facing out, we're gonna fold it in half and kind of roll it while we do it. So we want all of the bad side of the fabric facing in like this, one big donut. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. You have to fit this small ponytail into this big loop. So I'm gonna stretch it, and starting from one end, I'm gonna kind of hook it into my hand, stretch around, and it's okay if it kind of looks like this on your hand. We're gonna pinch together where we first started our sewing, so in this end. Flatten this area out, and it's okay if this is kind of ruffled and falling away. And we're going to put this into our sewing machine right like this. So now we are sewing with the right side of the fabric facing out on both sides. We're going to start stitching, and again we're going to back stitch to lock our stitch into place. I'm using about an 1/8 inch seam allowance around, but you can use a 1/4 until you feel more comfortable. And we're going to stitch all the way around the scrunchie, making sure that we're always getting the pieces flat together. So this does take some maneuvering. Slow down when you have to turn. See how I'm stretching out the hair tie a little bit and flattening things down. Making sure everything aligns very well. Now as we get to the beginning of our stitching, I'm going to trim off this tail, and we're actually going to stitch over where we already stitched. It's called stitching in a ditch, and we're going to go over that and then back stitch again to lock it into place. Cut off, trim our threads, and you have your scrunchie. The other part that I'm going to do is just trim these little pieces that are sticking out here, and you're done. Our second project is going to be a bow. We have our template or pattern piece for our bow and just a little piece of scrap fleece that I have, and I think I actually kind of want to do the patterns this way. And I'm just going to trim around the pattern piece very carefully. Now if you have a hard time with these corners, you can use shears instead. You can actually cut the entire part with shears, but I just like my rotary cutter. So we have our big piece of our bow, and then we're going to cut our little piece. And I think it would be fun to have some of this green in there. And with that, we're ready to move on to the sewing machine. With our bow, we have two different pieces. We have our main large piece as well as a small inner piece. This is going to take some hand sewing, but we're going to do the machine work first. We're going to take our large panel and fold it in half, hot dog style, and with our right sides facing in. And then we're going to kind of accordion fold half of it back, and same with the other side. So now we have this little accordion that is, let me show you the siding of this. So right sides are facing out as well as up, and we are going to sew in the center of this bow. Now this is a lot of layers of fabric, so be sure to go slow. We want to back stitch again, locking into place. Go all the way down and then back stitch back. We're going to trim off our thread tails. And this is all we need to move on to hand sewing. So if you unfold this, you can see the beginning of the bow starting. And we're going to take this little piece and wrap it around and hand stitch it finished. To finish off our bow, we're going to need to hand stitch our little accessory piece as well as an alligator clip to it. So I have my needle prepped with thread. It's doubled through. I find that this is the easiest way for me to sew because I don't have to worry about losing tails. And every time I teach people how to sew, I really like to show them the quilter's knot. So this is the easiest knot. It always comes out really well. It's the same every time you do it, so I recommend it. What you're gonna do as a right-handed sewer is you're gonna place the tails of your thread on top of your needle, pinch with your thumb, wrap under and over the needle 3 times, gather all that up between your pinching fingers, grab the needle and slowly slide the knot down until it hits the end of your thread, and you have a knot every time. I'm going to trim that, and we are going to hand sew the band around our bow. So I'm going to wrap around and go to the back. I like to pick up just a little bit of the main part of the bow just to stabilize the ribbon in the middle. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this end and pick up over the top of this, and then we're gonna go inside here. We're gonna loop around like that over and over again until we get to the end. You can pull as you go if you'd like. Alright, now that we're at the end, I'm gonna try to tack it down to a part of the main portion of the bow again. I'm going to loop back up, and before I pull, I'm going to put my needle through this loop and pull, and then I'm going to go back through this loop again and pull until it's taut. I like to hide the tails of my stitching just inside my project, so I'm going to go in just close to where I knotted, pull out anywhere through, and then snip. And the last thing to finish our bow is taking your alligator clip and simply sliding it in. Now you can slide it into the bottom, or you could also slide it closer to the back. And you're done.
You're so pretty. No, not you, the bow.
For our third and final project, we're gonna make a luggage tag. So this is made up of two pieces. We have our fleece in the back and a vinyl plastic piece in the front. And this is perfect for slipping in your business card with your address on it. So we're gonna cut out each of the pieces next. The first thing I did was cut a rough rectangle out of the vinyl plastic. Now you can get this at fabric stores. I got mine at Joann's. I believe this is the 0.03 thickness for the vinyl. It's used mostly for furniture coverings, but whatever is most flexible and comfortable for you. Just know that the thicker this plastic is, the stronger your needle will have to be. So I went with a fairly thin one. Then I have our fleece. Now obviously you can make these in very fun patterns and colors, but I wanted to do something simple so it's a little bit easier to see on the screen. So we have our pattern piece for this. First thing I'm going to do is just cut off some of this extra or excess and trim around the piece. And with our large piece of vinyl and our fabric tag cut out, we are ready to move to the sewing machine. Now, as you saw before, I left this piece of plastic fairly large, but the first thing we are going to do is actually trim away the top part. So we want the edge of the plastic at the top to not cover our hole for attachment. So we are gonna trim the plastic just a little bit. You could do it as a diagonal, or you could do it as like a fun curved line, as long as we're not blocking off where we're going to attach it to the suitcase. So I'm going to leave, I have about 3/8 of an inch currently as a border. I'm gonna find where my corners are right here and here, and just do a generalized line, maybe just straight for now, and then you can start to play around with this. So maybe I want to put like a little grabbing hole so you can easily go in and out, take out your cards, or maybe I want to do something more fun and do like a real big swoop. Yeah, that's fun. So we're gonna lay this on top with plenty of room around with the plastic. And the reason I do this is because you can trim the plastic to perfectly fit, but then you have to be very careful with how you sew. And this is supposed to be an easy, fun project. So if you leave some border room, we can sew it and then trim it after. I'm going to use a nice contrasting thread. It's just going to be white. I'm going to start about 1 stitch length in from the edge of my plastic. and I'm going to drop my needle down, and I'm going to, again, very slowly do about 2 or 3 stitches, and then back stitch. Now, this is using about 1/8 of an inch allowance, so we're going to get pretty close to the edge of the fabric in the process. So what I'm using as my guide is the hole in my sewing foot. As long as I'm seeing green, I should have plenty of space for what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm going to slowly stitch all the way until I hit the first corner. And be sure the plastic moves with your fabric. Now once I get about 1/8 of an inch away from this edge, I want to make sure my needle's all the way down before I lift my presser foot. This allows me to fully rotate my project without losing the spot that I'm in. If my needle was up, I might lose where I was. I'm going to start again. Now the bigger you can have your stitch length for this project, the better for your plastic. If you have your stitch length too small, you can end up perforating the plastic and it'll rip. I'm going to turn again. Actually, I'm going to check. I think I can do one more stitch. Now I'm going to turn. Go up the side. And before I get to the edge, I'm just going to back stitch to lock everything in place and trim. So now we have this. I can take my scissors and trim around the fabric from the fabric, or trim around the fabric from the fabric side. Just trim off any excess plastic. And this stuff cuts really easily. Trim off my extra thread. Now with fleece, you can just cut a little slit, and since this fabric doesn't fray, it'll stay just as well. But I also like to just give it a little bit of extra pizzazz and actually add a buttonhole. Now buttonholes are and can be a little tricky the first couple of times you use them. Your sewing machine should come with either a sliding attachment like this or a more mechanical attachment like this. This one comes with my machine. I'm still learning how to use it. I'm much more practiced with this one, but I'll walk you through how you're going to use it. On a standard machine, you're going to clip this into your machine, and you're going to use a small zigzag stitch all the way to the left, and you're going to go down a certain amount. I think on this one would be 4 marks. You're going to then zigzag across the entire width, and then do a small zigzag back down the right and another full width. This will give you the sides and then the ends of your buttonhole. My machine, since it's a little fancier, can do it almost completely for me, which really surprised me the first time I did it. So I should be able to clip this in. And then I have a little zipper or a buttonhole attachment here. Should be able to place it down. Pick my buttonhole and press go. It is also a little tricky to get it straight into the middle. Like I said, I'm still getting used to this zipper foot, so definitely practice on some spare fabric. I'm going to trim out the extra thread as always. And with a buttonhole, all you have to do next is carefully trim in between the stitches that you did. And just cut a little slit. thread there, and now it's ready to use. As I said earlier, you can just take a piece of fleece and cut a hole. You can fold it in half so you know you're exactly in the middle. And this won't fray. It can stretch a little, so if you do have a buttonhole attachment, I do recommend using this project as a good practice and to give your luggage tags a little bit more longevity. Thank you so much for watching our video. We hope you loved it. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button as well. There's a little bell that you can click so you don't miss any future videos. Share with family and friends, especially if they're learning how to sew. This is a great starting video for them. And leave a comment down below of what other kinds of projects and crafts you want to learn how to do. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye!